What if I told you that some of heavy metal's loudest icons were hiding more than just wild stage antics and rebellious lyrics? Behind the screaming guitars and leather jackets, a few of rock's most hardcore legends carried a truth that the world wasn't ready to hear. In an industry built on machismo and rebellion, their real battles weren't always fought on stage. They were personal, private, and painfully human. Here are 20 heavy metal legends you didn't know were gay. 20. Adam Lambert. Adam Lambert isn't a traditional heavy metal frontman, yet his connection to Queen places him right in the heart of rock and metal history. When he took on the impossible task of performing with the band that once belonged to Freddie Mercury, people expected imitation. Instead, Lambert brought his own spark, a bold mix of confidence, emotion, and pride. As an openly gay performer, he shattered the outdated idea that masculinity in rock had to look a certain way. His fierce energy on stage, glittering outfits, and soulful power reminded fans that music isn't about hiding who you are, it's about setting yourself free. In a world where many gay artists once had to stay silent to survive, Lambert's rise became a victory for honesty. Every time he belts out those legendary Queen songs, it's not just a tribute to Mercury, it's a continuation of his spirit. He stands proudly as proof that being gay in heavy music doesn't take away from the edge or attitude, it amplifies it. Through his presence, Lambert showed that courage can roar louder than any guitar solo, and authenticity can light up a stadium brighter than any spotlight. 19. King Diamond. King Diamond has always been larger than life, a ghostly figure draped in black with corpse paint and a falsetto that could pierce the night. But beyond his haunting stage persona lies something even more fascinating: his fearless defiance of traditional masculinity. In a genre where men often proved their power through aggression and grit, King Diamond did it through mystery, drama, and expression. His look-painted face, dark lipstick, and intricate costumes challenged what heavy metal should look like. Though King never publicly identified as gay, his art made space for those who did. Many fans in the LGBTQ+ community saw his theatrical image as a bold rejection of stereotypes, a message that being different was something to celebrate, not to hide. His stage performances blurred the lines between gender, beauty, and horror, creating an atmosphere that allowed queer fans to feel seen in a world that often ignored them. King Diamond didn't need to preach acceptance, his very presence screamed it. He proved that in heavy metal, power doesn't always come from muscles or rage, it can come from pure artistic freedom. By redefining what it meant to be a man on stage, King Diamond opened doors for gay and queer artists to exist without boundaries. 18. Tommy Victor. Tommy Victor, the driving force behind the industrial groove metal band Prong, has always been one of those musicians who prefer to let the riffs do the talking. His aggressive guitar tone and gritty voice helped shape a sound that influenced countless metal bands after him. Yet, through the years, quiet rumors surrounded his personal life, hinting that he might be gay. Tommy never made any public statement about his sexuality, and maybe he never needed to. But the whispers that followed him show how deeply metal culture used to struggle with the idea of queerness. In a world that often glorified dominance and toughness, being gay was seen as something that didn't fit the mold. Whether those stories were true or not almost doesn't matter, it's the conversation they sparked that did. The fact that fans even speculated shows how eager people were to find representation in a genre that didn't always welcome it. If Tommy Victor was indeed gay or bisexual, he represented quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need labels to prove authenticity. And if not, he still became part of a much bigger story about how heavy metal slowly learned to embrace individuality, diversity, and freedom. 17. Michael Stipe. Michael Stipe of REM might not have been a heavy metal artist himself, but his influence reached deep into alternative and hard rock scenes that shaped later generations of metal musicians. As an openly gay man, Stipe stood for honesty and vulnerability in music, traits that heavy metal once avoided. His soft-spoken confidence and emotional songwriting made it okay for men in rock to show sensitivity without losing power. Many metal vocalists who admired him began writing lyrics that went beyond anger, touching on identity, confusion, and inner truth. That quiet revolution changed everything. Stipe never screamed. never wore leather, and never growled, but his courage to live openly helped other performers see that authenticity could coexist with intensity. His story reminds fans that gay representation in metal isn't always about sound, it's about spirit. The same courage that fueled him as an artist rippled through a scene built on rebellion. And rebellion, after all, is what heavy metal has always been about. Whether listeners realize it or not, the openness of today's metal culture owes a quiet thank you to Michael Stipe's example of fearless self-expression. 16. Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury's voice could move mountains. His range, power, and energy turned Queen into one of the greatest rock acts ever. But his influence didn't stop there. Many metal singers, from Rob Halford to Axl Rose, grew up studying his theatrical command of the stage. What made Freddie extraordinary wasn't just his voice, it was his bravery. Living as a gay man during a time when being openly queer could destroy careers, he used performance as both armor and art. On stage, he became untouchable, transforming shame into pure showmanship. His presence taught generations of metal and rock artists that masculinity didn't have to mean hiding softness or beauty. When the truth about his sexuality became public, some fans were shocked, but others realized how much his honesty had always been part of his power. Freddie Mercury helped rewrite what a rock god could be: flamboyant, emotional, and unapologetically human. Even decades later, his legacy continues to echo through heavy metal, the operatic vocals, the dramatic flair, the boldness to stand out. Every gay artist who picks up a mic in a metal band today carries a spark of Freddie's spirit with them. 15. Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson has always thrived on confusion and chaos. From his smeared makeup to his unsettling performances, he built a career out of challenging what people considered normal. Over the years, Manson often described himself as sexually fluid, blurring boundaries between male and female, attraction and performance. Though not openly labeling himself gay, his art carried heavy queer undertones that questioned society's obsession with gender and desire. In the 90 seconds, his look alone, a man in heels, lipstick, and latex, was enough to spark outrage. But that was the point. In a time when heavy metal was drowning in hyper-masculine imagery, Manson made it hauntingly beautiful to be different. His provocative style gave visibility to queer fans who felt invisible in metal's straight culture. Every scream, every twisted lyric was a rebellion against the idea that sexuality had rules. Whether fans loved him or hated him, they couldn't ignore him. He turned discomfort into conversation and made it impossible to separate sexuality from self-expression. For many gay and queer listeners, Manson's androgyny wasn't just shock value, it was liberation set to distorted guitars and firelight. 14. Andy Biersack. Andy Biersack, the striking frontman of Black Veil Brides, changed the look and energy of modern metal. With his jet black hair, eyeliner, and fearless stage persona, he shattered the stereotype that heavy metal frontmen had to be rugged or emotionless. Although Andy himself isn't gay, his strong defense of gay and queer fans turned him into one of the genre's loudest allies. He stood up against hate, bullying, and the outdated belief that sexuality defined strength. His style, often glam-inspired and unapologetically bold, brought back the theatrical flair once made famous by icons like Freddie Mercury. Many gay fans saw in him the kind of confidence they wished the metal world had shown them years ago. His message was simple: music should unite, not divide. In interviews and shows, he made it clear that metal belongs to everyone, straight, gay, or otherwise. By showing compassion without fear, Andy helped make the modern rock scene more inclusive than ever. Through his image and voice, he reminded fans that rebellion isn't just about breaking guitars, it's about breaking stereotypes too. 13. Danny Filth. Danny Filth, the frontman of Cradle of Filth, is known for turning gothic metal into something that feels both terrifying and strangely beautiful. With his ghostly makeup, shrieking vocals, and haunting lyrics, Danny became a figure of fascination in the metal world. Over the years, his look and stage presence blurred gender lines, heavy makeup, corsets, and theatrical poses that challenged what it meant to be masculine in a genre built on aggression. While Danny has never publicly identified as gay, His artistry created space for queer interpretation. Many fans from the LGBTQ+ community connected deeply to his willingness to be different, to take something that looked dark and make it empowering. His performances carried the same spirit found in gay culture, defiant, expressive, and unapologetic. By embracing the unusual, Danny showed that metal could be more than noise and anger. It could be emotional theater. Even though he didn't label himself, his image and message quietly helped normalize self-expression in a world that once mocked anything feminine or flamboyant. Danny Filth didn't just sing about monsters, he helped destroy one of the biggest monsters in music, judgment. 12. Brian Molko. Brian Molko, the face of Placebo, stepped into the 90 seconds rock and metal scene like a flash of rebellion wrapped in lipstick and eyeliner. With his androgynous style and fearless honesty, he proudly represented the gay and bisexual community at a time when most rock stars avoided the topic altogether. Molko's songs dripped with sexual tension and vulnerability, mixing beauty with chaos. His openness about attraction to both men and women helped shift the perception of what a rock frontman could be. He wasn't hiding behind loud guitars or macho swagger, he owned every side of himself. That confidence inspired a generation of fans who were struggling with their own identities. Within metal circles, Molko's look and message echoed through glam and alternative subgenres, reminding artists that queerness could coexist with raw power. His very presence broke barriers, showing that art and sexuality weren't opposites, they were intertwined. Long before inclusivity became a movement, Brian Molko stood proudly as proof that being gay, fluid, or anything in between didn't weaken a musician's impact, it made them unforgettable. 11. Pete Steele. Pete Steele, the towering voice behind Typo Negative, was one of the most complex figures in metal history. His deep baritone and dark lyrics made him a symbol of raw masculinity, but beneath that intimidating image, there was a different kind of mystery. Pete often spoke about attraction to both men and women, leaving fans questioning whether he was bisexual or just comfortable enough to blur the lines. He posed nude for magazines, joked about his sexuality in interviews, and turned sensuality into a central part of his persona. In a genre where being gay was often whispered about but rarely accepted, Steele didn't seem to care what people thought. That defiance was power. By openly discussing desire without shame, he chipped away at the fear surrounding queer identity in metal. His music, filled with passion and darkness, became a reflection of that inner conflict, love and pain, strength and vulnerability. Whether fans saw him as gay, straight, or something else, Pete Steele's legacy reminded everyone that sexuality isn't weakness, it's part of the fire that fuels the art. 10. Christian Varg Vikernes. Christian Varg Vikernes, the controversial founder of Burzum and a key figure in Norwegian black metal, has always been surrounded by mystery and scandal. Among the many wild stories about his life, some fans speculated about his sexuality, hinting that he might have been secretly gay or experimenting during his youth. While there's no solid proof behind those rumors, their persistence shows how black metal fans have long wrestled with the concept of identity and masculinity. The genre's obsession with dominance, violence, and darkness made any form of queerness taboo. Even whispers about it sparked outrage or denial. But that's exactly why these stories matter. They reveal how deeply buried the fear of being gay once was in metal's cold heart. Whether the rumors were real or not, they sparked an important conversation about what it means to be true in a genre that claims to embrace rebellion but often fears difference. Varg's story, twisted as it is, reminds us that sometimes the loudest voices against change are hiding their own truth. In the shadows of his chaos, the topic of queerness in black metal quietly took its first breath. 9. Laura Jane Grace. Laura Jane Grace, the powerful voice behind Against Me, brought something raw and deeply personal to punk metal culture when she came out as transgender in the early 2010 seconds. Before transitioning, she was already a respected musician, but after revealing her truth, her art reached an entirely new level of honesty. Living openly as a transgender and gay woman in a world that thrives on rebellion made her one of the bravest figures in heavy music. Through her lyrics, she channeled years of fear, frustration, and freedom, turning pain into art that resonated far beyond gender lines. Her courage gave hope to countless fans who felt unseen in both the punk and metal communities. Laura didn't just perform, she confronted the world with authenticity that cut deeper than any guitar riff. In an industry that often mocked or excluded queer artists, she stood her ground and sang her truth loud enough for everyone to hear. Her journey became living proof that being gay or transgender in metal isn't a limitation. It's a revolution that continues to shake the stage with every note. 8. Mina Caputo. Mina Caputo, the lead singer of Life of Agony, made history when she came out as transgender in the early 2000s. Before her transition, fans knew her as Keith Caputo, a fierce frontman whose deep, emotional lyrics already hinted at inner struggle. When she revealed that she was living as a transgender and gay woman, the metal world didn't quite know how to react. Some fans cheered her courage, while others turned away, but Mina never looked back. Her transformation wasn't about fame, it was about freedom. She used her music to share her journey, blending strength, vulnerability, and truth into every word she sang. Her voice became softer in tone, but stronger in purpose, carrying a message of self-acceptance that hit harder than any riff. In a genre that often glorified aggression, Mina brought empathy and authenticity. She reminded the world that being gay or transgender wasn't something to hide, it was a form of rebellion that came from the soul. Today, she stands as one of heavy metal's most powerful symbols of personal truth, proving that courage isn't loud, it's honest. 7. Paul Masvidal and Sean Reinert. When Paul Masvidal and Sean Reinert, from the progressive death metal band Cynic, publicly came out as gay in the mid-2010 seconds, it sent shockwaves through one of metal's most macho corners. Death metal had long been known for its aggression, dark imagery, and sometimes intolerant fan base. But these two legends flipped that narrative. Both incredible musicians, they had already earned respect for their technical mastery and innovation. Yet for years, they kept their truth hidden, fearing backlash. When they finally spoke up, they didn't do it for headlines, they did it for freedom. Their coming out challenged fans to rethink what strength really means. It showed that being gay didn't contradict the brutality of metal, it redefined it. Their honesty encouraged other closeted musicians to step forward and showed fans that authenticity can exist even in the most extreme corners of music. By sharing their truth, Masvidal and Reinert gave death metal a heart, one that beat with courage, pride, and a love of self that couldn't be silenced. 6. Jane County. Long before heavy metal exploded into the mainstream, Jane County was already breaking boundaries. As one of the first openly transgender rock performers, she lit a fire under the entire underground music scene. With her band Wayne County and the Electric Chairs, she mixed glam rock, punk attitude, and raw defiance into something that would later influence metal's rebellious spirit. Jane was openly gay and transgender at a time when that kind of honesty could destroy a career. But instead of hiding, she made her identity her weapon. Her fierce performances, wild costumes, and unapologetic lyrics paved the way for queer visibility in rock and metal. Without artists like her, later generations might never have had the freedom to express who they really were. Jane's influence went beyond gender. It was about fearless individuality. She showed the world that queerness wasn't weakness. It was power wrapped in glitter and rebellion. Her name might not always appear in metal's mainstream history, but her spirit runs through every artist who ever dared to be themselves on stage. 5. Roddy Bottum. Roddy Bottum, the keyboardist of Faith No More, made waves in the early 1990 seconds when he came out as gay, a time when few rock or metal musicians dared to do so. His decision wasn't about attention, it was about living honestly. In a scene dominated by testosterone and bravado, Roddy's openness felt revolutionary. He quietly shifted the culture by simply existing as himself. His influence seeped into the band's music. Two songs like Be Aggressive carried subtle queer themes that only became clear years later. Bottom's courage helped carve space for other gay musicians who were afraid to step into the light. His story proves that you don't always have to shout to make change. You just have to show up and live your truth. By being visible, Roddy reminded fans that being gay didn't make you different from anyone else on stage. It made you braver. His honesty echoed through a time when silence was safer, and that's exactly what makes him one of metal's quietest, yet strongest revolutionaries. 4. Doug Pinnick. Doug Pinnick, the powerhouse bassist and vocalist of King's X, has one of the most soulful voices in rock. In the 1,990 seconds, when he came out as gay, the reaction was harsh. Fans disappeared, record labels turned their backs, and radio stations stopped playing his songs. But Doug refused to compromise who he was. He had already built his career on honesty and depth, and he wasn't about to start lying. Instead, he channeled the pain into his music, writing lyrics that spoke about loneliness, faith, and the struggle to be seen. His openness cost him fame, but earned him something greater: respect. Doug became a living example of how being gay in heavy metal isn't about fitting in. It's about standing tall when everything tries to push you down. His courage inspired countless younger artists to live authentically, even when the world wasn't ready. Doug Pinnick didn't just play bass. He carried the weight of representation for every gay musician who came after him, proving that truth has a sound and it's louder than fear. 3. Otep Shamaya. Otep Shamaya didn't just step into the world of heavy metal, she crashed through its walls. As the openly gay frontwoman of the band Otep, she built her entire career on rage, poetry, and truth. Her voice became a weapon against hate, a roar that cut through the noise of an industry built by men, for men. While others played it safe, Otep spoke fearlessly about sexuality, identity, and oppression. Every lyric, every scream, carried a message of defiance that being gay was not a weakness, but a form of power. Her stage performances blurred the line between concert and revolution, commanding attention not just for her sound, but for her unapologetic authenticity. In a genre that often glorified aggression, she turned that aggression into a fight for equality. Otep made her queerness part of her art, not a hidden secret, but a weapon of truth. She gave countless young fans the courage to embrace their own identities and showed that metal can be both brutal and beautiful when it comes from the heart. For her, being gay wasn't a headline, it was her heartbeat, driving every lyric and every scream that echoed across the stage. 2. Gal. In the frozen world of Norwegian black metal, few figures are as mysterious or as brave as Gal, the former frontman of Gorgoroth. Known for his chilling stage presence and connection to some of the darkest corners of the genre, Gal shocked fans when he openly revealed that he was gay. It was an act of pure courage in a scene infamous for its hypermasculine image and violent history. Many expected his career to collapse, but instead, he stood even taller, calm, composed, and utterly unafraid. His announcement forced black metal fans to confront their own prejudice and question the image they'd worshipped for years. Gal never turned his sexuality into a spectacle. He simply lived his truth, and that quiet defiance became louder than any scream. In interviews, he spoke of love as a universal force, something greater than hate or fear, a message that hit deeper than the music itself. By choosing authenticity over conformity, Gal didn't just come out, he changed the face of one of metal's most extreme movements. His story reminds everyone that even in the darkest music, light can find a way to shine. 1. Rob Halford. Rob Halford, the legendary frontman of Judas Priest, is more than just a heavy metal icon. He's a symbol of courage and liberation. During the height of his fame, Halford was forced to hide his sexuality in an era when being gay could destroy a career overnight. Dressed in leather, wielding his fierce voice, and commanding the stage like a warrior, he became the very image of metal masculinity. Yet behind the power and the pride was a man carrying a heavy secret. When he finally came out publicly in the late 1990s, the reaction was explosive, but also transformative. Fans who once idolized his strength now admired his honesty even more. Halford proved that being gay didn't make him any less of a metal god. It made him more human, more real, and even more inspiring. His story shattered one of rock's biggest taboos and opened the door for others to live freely. Today, Rob Halford isn't just remembered for his voice or his leather-clad image, he's celebrated for his truth. In a world that once told him to hide, he chose to roar, and that roar still echoes through every riff that defines heavy metal itself. Behind the thunder of guitars and the roar of the crowd, these heavy metal legends proved that identity can't be confined by stereotypes or silenced by fear. Their courage didn't just break barriers, it redefined what it means to be authentic in one of the toughest music scenes ever. Their stories remind us that true strength comes from being unapologetically yourself, no matter who's watching. So, after hearing these untold truths, do you see heavy metal in a different light? If you want more stories that dig beneath the surface of rock's biggest icons, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and stick around because the real secrets of the music world are just getting louder.